It's Wednesday night, and we're live from Oakdale, Washington, in the Educated Touch studio. Welcome to Ethics Outside the Box, with your host, Nathan Nordstrom. Special guests include Joe Masclino and you. Here he is, Nathan Nordstrom.
Guys, welcome to today's Ethics Outside the Box. It's great to have you. We're going to do some pre-recording. We're actually at the AMTA National Convention this week, and so we're excited to be kind of doing this on the road and pre-recorded. But that means I get to hang out with my friend Joe here. And so great to have you with me, Joe. Glad we can finally get this back together and connect. Yeah. You know, I really do enjoy that we get opportunities to have face-to-face meetings at conferences, because there's such an isolating aspect for massage therapy that when we pull people together, people get to not only do the complaining of what's going on, but then they get to come up with other ideas and other people's perspective on what they did right, what they did wrong, and how we can all improve. That's, in my mind, that's really the key pieces of ethics, is that you're connecting with what's right, what's wrong, and then taking that next step to improve.
And something, not ethics related, but not coming to these conferences is you get so jazzed up.
Oh yeah.
You meet other people with the passion for the field you're in, and it's just like you escalate with each other, and you come back from these conferences, even if there isn't a specific workshop that you want to take. It doesn't matter. You connect with all these great people all around the country, sometimes outside of the country, and you just come back so jazzed to go back to what you do.
Well, and I'll get jazzed up about a class that I'm excited about, but I almost always sign up for a class from someone that I've never received a class from. And the reason why is because I don't know who the next person is who's going to have some concept that I've just never connected with.
Or look at something from a perspective that hasn't been brought out before.
Absolutely. That's just always amazing to kind of connect with for me. So I'm excited about this week and about the conference. But today I wanted to kind of remind us that where we're going to go back to for our Standard of Practice and Code of Ethics. And that would be the National Certification Board of Therapeutic Massage and Bodyworks website. And one of the things that you'll notice starting today is that they've redone their website. So it's refreshed, there's a lot of pictures, a lot of change to it, so that's really good. However, the Code of Ethics and Standard of Practice are both still at the very bottom left-hand side. Scroll right on down and get right to both of those and be able to assess what it is that you need to do so that you can have the best profitability. So they try to keep that consistent for us, and that's very helpful. So today I actually wanted to have us talk about two different subjects. The first one is maintaining, it's Standard 2, letter E, and that's maintaining accurate, truthful records. And record keeping has a huge variety of different topics that we can get into, all the way from making sure that you're doing receipts and running businesses appropriately, but I think this is more fortified towards
chart notes.
Massage therapists.
Chart notes.
And so the difference between two categories of chart noting, which I don't see a lot of discussion in massage schools about, but there's a standardized process which we call SOAP noting, and SOAP, Subjective Objective Assessment Plan. But then clinical chart noting is a generalized term that could be even progress notes is a secondary offshoot of that. And so what are your experiences, your thoughts on SOAP noting?
So first I'm going to say that I taught at a massage school for 24 years, and whenever we would have any application discussions of our work, which to me, when you teach, you always want to apply to what the real field is going to be. I would always make this strong emphasis on you have to have really good chart notes, SOAP notes. And I have to say, being out there, I meet very few massage therapists that keep notes at all. And I'm absolutely blown away. And I think I'm going to go back to when I was in senior clinic in chiropractic school. I'm not technically a massage therapist, but my chiropractic license subsumes massage. I've done thousands of hours of massage. I consider massage my favorite manual therapy, treatment protocol, method. So And I remember being in senior clinic, and the clinic advisor, I mean, we're nervous, we're in clinic the first time, we think everything has to be done a certain way, and at a certain point, Dr. Herman, who was our clinic advisor, said, well, your notes are for you. They're for you to understand what you did. They need to be legible for someone else to understand if they're going to read it. And I was thinking about all this pressure that I have to do, SOAP, exactly a certain way. And she basically said, don't worry about that. Just make sure your notes contain the basic elements. So let's go to that SOAP, and my kind of pet peeve with this is S stands for subjective. So symptoms are subjective. That means something that only the client himself, herself can experience. So if they have pain, no one can tell a client they do or don't have pain. Only they can state that themselves. So we put down the symptoms, SX, symptoms. Then O is objective, that's signs. Signs are something that can be measured by another person. So the therapist can measure blood pressure or palpation of myofascial tissue. So signs and symptoms, and that's what you collect for information. Now, if A is assessment, then that's the assessment that you create at the end of the sign and symptom gathering so that you can then know what you need to do appropriately to help them.
Yep.
And my forte in the world of massage and manual therapy is clinical orthopedic work. So it's remedying a specific musculoskeletal condition or myofascioskeletal or neuromyofascioskeletal to capture all of that. And that means that we're working with people who have a problem, and that's what we do. And we need to have an assessment. We need a target for treatment. Now, if that means we now have an assessment, well, P is plan. So is plan what I intend to do? I want to treat them twice a week for the next 3 weeks, and I want to do this therapy and that therapy and this therapy, in which case that's my plan, but then what is it that I actually do for treatment? Because you need to document what your treatment is. And in another conversation you and I were speaking, and you said, well, A can also mean action. Well,
and actually it depends on the school, and actually different documentation is starting to pull that and saying, okay, what is more important, the A for assessment or the A for action? And I don't have an answer to that question.
I think that's a bad question to ask.
Absolutely.
There's no reason that one has to be more important. Yes, SOAP, SOAP, it's a wonderful acronym. We can all remember it. It should be SOAAP if you want A for action, or SOTX treatment, or T for treatment. I realize we destroy the acronym, but you need to write down what we've done. And beyond ethics, someone sees me, I work on them. They don't come back for a month, 6 months, a year, 4 years. They come back 4 years later and they say, I loved what you did last time. Can you do that again? And if you don't have notes, it's impossible to recall what you did. So you need to have those notes also for the sake of the quality of your work with the clients. And that's why, to me, that SOAP, I stumble with that AP part. So if plan is the plan of what you'll do, you can also say P could be prognosis. I learned it as prognosis years ago. But plan and prognosis become a little similar. It's your treatment strategy over the longer term. So I guess what I want to say here is if anyone is holding back from doing notes because they feel that it must be done a certain way, I don't want to do it a wrong way, so you avoid it, just make sure that you have the elements of the information you gather, your assessment, what you do for treatment, your action, and then maybe I recommended this, I referred them for that, whatever the bigger plan is beyond that treatment.
Oh, and in the P section, that plan, I've also seen it where it's separated out into two pieces. And the one that I always thought was the most important was the goal section of the plan. And that when you are seeing a client, you should have a treatment goal, you should have a purpose, you should have a reason. Because if you're not going to see them again, if you're like, okay, well, you did a massage, perfect, you're done, and you're feeling better, good, and then you don't see them for a month, 2 months, 10 months, 10 years, you really don't have a goal. But if they're coming in and they're having a specific challenge, a specific problem, and they want to overcome that and kind of work with the soft tissue and change the posture of the soft tissue. And when I was in massage school, it was about creating treatments that work, that allow change over the one time, just got the massage done and you're on your way. But if you got 3 massages in a week, your soft tissue system is going to change and you're trying to create a new postural assessment, alignment, a new guidance. And that's where the goal would be so important. And if you don't meet that goal, document it. To me, this is more of the research side of why you want to have good soap notes, is because I know we created a student case study, and being able to have good soap clinical documentation with that goal really reminded us of what the purpose of our study was, what we were actually going for, what our end plan was, and it gave us a point on every page to go back to that client and say, okay, so this is where you're at, this is where you're going. So many times you get a client who, you see them the first time, they feel better, you see them the second time, they don't have those symptoms of pain that are reminding them, so then they stop coming, and then they come back a couple of weeks later saying, the pain came back. And you're like, but we weren't working on just getting rid of the pain, we were working on changing you enough to maintain a good, healthy system.
My mind goes to so many directions at once about this. So let's say that there has to be a plan, a goal for that specific treatment. There has to be a grander plan or goal beyond that, which is what you're saying, right?
Yep.
We have to have a treatment strategy beyond that. And there's so many elements that are important there, because one, it can be for you to check in on your own expectations and what you're looking to do, and be honest with yourself about whether you're achieving what you really were trying to achieve. But another is, and I did not used to do this, that verbiage is good, but I didn't do this in the beginning, is I've really come to love that 0 to 10 pain scale, where 0 is no pain at all and 10 is the worst pain you could ever imagine. And the reason I love it is that people forget pain. I'll have someone who comes in and they'll have a certain amount of pain, and when I ask them each visit, do you feel any better? They'll say no. Then I ask them 3 visits later and they say, oh, much better than before. But they never said anything in between. Or maybe they don't remember and they say, oh, no, I don't feel any different. And I'll be like, well, here you wrote that your pain level was a 6. And everyone will give those numbers differently, but people are somewhat consistent within themselves. And I'll be like, do you feel your pain's a 6? And they'll say, oh, no, it's like a 3. And I'm like, but you... So there's a value in that, because you can also reflect that back to them and show them the progress that they're making that they might forget about. Because pain is something that people will tend to forget afterwards that they had.
Qualitative and quantitative
are
those 2 great tools that you can use, especially when we're talking about soap notes and any documentation, to say it's not just do you hurt, yes or no, but how long have you hurt? How long during the day? Or what are those things? And writing goals, if you haven't taken a class on writing goals, please go find a YouTube video and look up SMART goals and go through that direction and look at how to really kind of connect with creating goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound. Those are those pieces that really kind of drive to helping yourself become more goal-oriented, but also helping your clients achieve their goals. Those are really important, but that's kind of only one piece, because we're going into these soap notes as they're important for us to make sure that we're responsible to ourselves, which is an ethical side. But then there's also the other ethical side of, are you responsible to your client? Making sure that that documentation is maintained, not only for your safety, but also for the client's safety.
Yeah, and certainly as massage more and more enters the field of actual therapeutics, and really, whether you say the medical field or you say the world of physicians, etc., physical therapy, etc., and you're interfacing with other health professionals, then very often chart notes will be requested by insurance companies. Chart notes might become part of their chart for a larger case for other health professionals, as we said, PTs, MDs, DCs, etc. So they have to also be legible. And I'll say, here's something every minute you spend charting is a minute you're not spending working on the client. And that to me is a negative, obviously, right? We always have to prioritize. I do a lot of abbreviations. And what I found was I made a master sheet of my abbreviations because I did not want to spend. I remember back in senior clinic again that Marcy did a treatment on me. And she spent like 15 minutes charting this long narrative. And it was great. It was a beautiful novel. It could have been War and Peace. But she spent 15 fewer minutes working on me. So you have to find that balance. So I found that I use a lot of abbreviations. But I made a master chart of my abbreviations that I would include when my chart notes would be requested.
Yep.
So that, and also there are a lot of abbreviations that are simply known in the world. SX is symptom, TX is treatment.
R circle, L circle.
So, yeah, I mean, so you don't have to narratively write everything out in long form, but it's important for legal reasons.
Yep.
It's important for you to be better at what you do. It's important for the client if they need to have notes. Sometimes someone moves somewhere else and they want to find someone, and you did a great job with them, and they say, well, I want to know what you did. And you can hand them their notes, and they can go somewhere and hand these notes over to someone else. So there's a continuity of care.
So earlier this year, I was an expert witness for a case where a massage therapist was accused of hurting the client.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was really pulled into the case was his note-taking, his soap notes, and the state's laws regarding taking soap notes or using clinical documentation. And as an expert witness to come into a place and to talk to not only other massage therapists, but then talking to lawyers who speak a different language. They really don't have the same
Legalese.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's definitely legalese.
And their mindset direction they come in is very different.
And being able to express what clinical shorthand is, and being able to read something and say, okay, bilateral pain in right shoulder, or bilateral pain in lower back, or head tilted to the right, and being able to express that that's what that means,
Yeah.
really can simplify a lot of the process, so that they can go, okay, was this documentation appropriate for a massage therapist? Obviously, a massage therapist and a nurse are going to have different clinical shorthands, but having a key for your documentation, for your shorthand, is very important. You can find them on, if you search Massage Nerd website, I know he has a sheet that I think is like 3 pages, and it's a Word document, you can just copy and paste the ones that you use, because then it keeps it in printed out form. If it's ever requested by an insurance company, if it's ever requested by a doctor, you would then be able to have a source to say, here's what those mean.
In the end, what's most important is it is understandable and legible.
Yep.
And very often I might do a treatment that is exactly the same one visit compared to the previous visit, and I will put TX, because I don't put A, I put TX, and I'll put same. Same, I'll put same as, and I'll put the date. Or I'll put same as, but I also did CR stretching for right lateral flexion to the neck, or whatever it would be.
W slash with extra.
I mean, I have almost no full words in my notes at all. And nowadays, pretty much, I mean, I've been in this 33 years, I'm a dinosaur, and I have still not moved over to electronic note taking.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It really does change the way you think. And yes, with 30 plus years of experience in writing, that becomes a different thing, and you do have that transition process. However, so my current job, I'm working with Stone, and one of the things that I'm so grateful for with the systems that are in place, a lot of these franchise spas, is they include note-taking sections.
They organize it for you.
And it's all set up, and you know exactly where it is, and you sign into that client's document, and you put what you did, and it can literally be click these boxes of things that you did, click these areas of the body of where you did them. What was the what did they come in for? Did they come in for a full body Swedish massage? Maybe did they come in for a hot stones massage? Did they come in for? And so you have all those clicks, and then there's ends up being just a line at the bottom saying any added information, and then you can put specific things about noticed restricted rotation of neck to the left. It simplifies it because of the electronics, but because you have mass scale, this person may come in and see you, and then
they'll see someone
else the next day, and someone else the next day, and so by the time they've had their contract with this franchise for 6 months, they may have 6 different massage therapists that they've seen, but you can go back and see, oh, in the last 6 months, they've worked on the same neck issues, but they've all worked on it different. Asking them, so who would you like the best? That gives you an idea to create the most effective treatment plan, because then you know what other massage therapists in the area are giving you input.
Now, Willette, I've gone as far as just not pulling the trigger. I mean, we have someone else, another person in my practice, and we worked together with this company, and he already moved into it. We created the illustrations that we wanted inset in for where I'd scribble my little tight muscle or postural elevation of the pelvis here, whatever it is. We even got them to customize that we could pull up the last treatment and just hit the same or whatever, because sometimes there is a certain consistency of, and got all that way, I just haven't quite pulled the trigger. But I can see that once you get used to that IT part of it, then it's going to make your life so much better.
But it can also be a crutch that makes you fail. Because one of those things that just want to maintain accurate and truthful records. When I see massage therapists who go in and hit the same as last visit, and
over
submit,
and over and over,
and you have 6 months worth of same as last visit.
I mean, you don't
You're
have any.
losing the accurate and truthful side of those documents, and that's dangerous. But it's an easy go-to. It's the easy button that reduces your quality.
Right. I mean, if you look at my notes, handwritten, you will never see same as more than once or twice.
Yeah.
Because if you're always doing the same thing over and over and over, I would have to question the wisdom of your care. I mean, there should be Sandy Fritz, an author, educator, once said something to me, and I don't know that it's original to her, but she said it to me, I always remember it, and I'm going to expand the concept of it. She once said, no massage stroke should ever end the way it was originally intended when you began it. So in other words, you change your stroke based on the response of the client's tissues. Well, take that and put it over multiple visits. Your treatment should be changing as their body changes, so that you're always responding to where they're at that particular day. If you're doing the same exact cookbook routine over and over and over, or even if, let's say, you're not, but then you lie, in effect, because you're lazy, you will have no leg to stand on if later on there's some question as to why you're doing what you're doing.
Yep.
I mean, you have to show that you're making some progress. So the question has to be whether it's the client simply saying, why am I coming back to you? Or an insurance company saying, so a lot of massage therapists will work with car accident cases, etc. And insurance companies are going to want to see you're making progress. And if they see you're always doing the same thing, and there's no change even in subjective-objective, SO, they're going to say, well, there's no forward movement here.
And that's actually insurance companies in states where massage is a portion of it, the state of Washington specifically, are getting wise to that. They're seeing this and they're saying, no, we're not going to pay for any more service if it's not needed, necessity, and actually gives them improvement.
They don't want maintenance care, is the famous term.
And that's a portion of where, as massage therapists, we need to be conscious and really engaged, not only in giving truthful and accurate documentation, but remembering what is the forward and no purpose. If someone's coming in and they're doing insurance-based work, are you actually helping them meet that goal that they're trying to get to? Or are you just kind of a maintenance piece?
Yeah, again, I never want to oversimplify, but maybe if you're doing what might be called a spa massage, where there's no intended therapeutic effect beyond the typical therapeutic effect of touch and movement of body fluids and pressure and all that, maybe you could argue that there's no need for your sake for notes, but there still will be a possible legal, because I knew someone who was accused, and she showed me a binder this thick, for someone in Canada, this thick of what she had to go back and forth with for the province board. She was innocent, she was proven innocent in the end, but it took her 8 months and this amount of correspondence to prove it, and she had really accurate records. Had she had no records, and someone would have said, and the accusation was not made the day after. The accusation was made like a month and a half later. And who will remember what they did 6 weeks ago, Tuesday afternoon from 2 to 3 o'clock? So first you have to legally cover yourself, you have to ethically cover, and then I truly believe that it's part of the quality of care, period, that you need to do. If you want to recognize yourself as part of the healthcare community, health professionals, you have to step up and really do what you need to do for that.
Absolutely. We can go on about record keeping forever, and it's such a huge category.
I want to add one little piece.
Yeah.
Is this something else? Yes, if you open my chart notes, you'll see the date and all my notes. On the left side, the inside cover, so to speak, of the chart, I made a custom sheet for myself. And in this custom sheet, I put all the different modalities, CR stretching, AC stretching, heat, ice, etc., etc. And I put a check if I've done it with them, and I put a little me. If they had it done before they ever came, I put A with a little line over, anti, before me. I have a list of all the stretches I've recommended. I have a list of all the exercises they do. I have a list of all of their diagnoses or assessments, we should say, for this world here. I have an area up in yellow highlighted beforehand. I make it yellow on the sheet of disc herniation, C5, C6, or whatever it would be. I even put a name of their wife or husband or who referred them, or dog or kids, so that if they haven't come in for a while, I can open that chart and in about 10 seconds scan, and it all comes, if I remember nothing, it all comes flooding back. So a kind of a cheat sheet, and when I do have to send chart notes in, I do include that. It's part of the note taking. But it is an overview Reader's Digest cheat sheet for me that I've never heard that recommended anywhere. No one ever told me to do it. I just said, my memory is not good enough. People will come back in later. So I strongly recommend you do that for a quick hit overview of that person and the aspects of them as a person, that person, and their history for health.
When I first started working with a chiropractor, one of the first challenges that I had was the chiropractor for their notes. It was literally a blank sheet of blank paper. There was no SOAP, no guides, none of that. And I was like, okay, hold on, how do I do this? And I realized that I could write out all of the things in line format without a problem. Because then when I come back, I could read 2 or 3 lines and have a full understanding of what I did and what was going on, where those things were. And it simplified the process for me so much, and it got me off of the crutch of what in massage school, when you're taking soap no class, they have the section B.
Sometimes you have a long O area, sometimes you don't have room for it. I started out with those formalized notes, and I went many years ago, I just went to plain line paper. I put the date, and I just put S in a circle, O in a circle. I don't like the A, I put TX. Okay, well, you see, for an assessment, I have it on the super bill form, so I always know what that is there. And I found that free form is better, by far, for me,
Absolutely.
at least. Look, you have to do what works for you, right? But you need to do it.
And that's when I talk about on the digital format, and you've got all the checkboxes that you can do.
Expand as needed.
To me, the importance is the added words at the beginning, because no 2 bodies are the same. No body is going to fit in just those checkboxes. You've got something unique with every condition. If you haven't seen it, don't know what's going on, you just, that everything seemed normal, then did not see any changes. There was no difference or anything of that nature.
Then write that down. Be honest.
Document that.
Yeah.
That gives you the full scope to say, okay, this is where we're at.
People rarely get better in a perfect linear line or even a perfect geometric line like this. Very often people hit a plateau.
Doesn't happen.
Yeah, hit the plateau and they stay stuck there for 2, 3 visits. Then suddenly they might move up and then they might get stuck there for a little while. That's reality most of the time. It's rare that you have that, my pain level was 8, now it's 7, now it's 6, now it's 1. So
That would be great.
you have to be truthful to be ethical, right? You have to be accurate to be ethical.
Well, and that leads right into letter F, standard 2F. Report to NCB within 30 days of any discovery of any evidence, such as first-hand knowledge of violations of NCBTMB Code of Ethics or these standards of practice by him or herself or by other candidates. So, being honest with yourself is, I've heard it referred to as the hardest thing. But if you're looking at yourself as a flawed individual who's trying to improve every day, that really does help change that expectation. And why would you want to report on yourself? And why would you want to report on other people if you're trying to build a community, if you're trying to build yourself up? And those are hard questions to ask, but there's some real important pieces to that whole aspect. If I'm a massage therapist and I've done something wrong, owning up to it, living up to it is a portion of your improvement. You can't improve until you have really faced who you are. I love and hate being a father at times, but I have to look at working with my kids in the same way. If my son Grant, the perfect example.
Keep names out of this.
Yes, he knows he loves when I talk about him. But Grant is an amazing child, and he's honest as the day is long. And so one day, my youngest son came in and he was crying. He said, "What's going on?" He said, "Grant hit me." So I went into his room and said, "Grant, did you hit Emmett?" "Yes, Dad." "Yes, I did." "Why did you hit him?" "He was being mean." "How was he being mean?" "Well, he was using this toy that he said, you can't hit your brother because he's being mean." "Okay, I'm sorry. You can't ground him for that. That's where, okay, you've reported.
Well, maybe you can,
You
but
can.
you wouldn't ground him as much as if he then lied about it afterwards.
If he's like, "No, I didn't hit him," like, then he's covering, and so because he was using it as a teachable moment and he understood, you give this leeway, you give this understanding that, okay, there's growth to be had. We're all improving, and truly, he's a brother. He probably has his brother again, but he gave that perception of we need to improve, and I can own up to what I've done. Now, if we can own up to our faults, we can own up to our strengths, and not get a big head about it. Usually, we can be humble enough to say, "We've got error, we've got flaws."
When you brought up that this second part was what we'll be talking about, we spoke for just a couple of minutes before, I was like, well, I've never had a therapist ethically do anything I thought was inappropriate to me here to report, and I've never done anything I know of that would be ethically wrong. So I said, well, I don't really have any experience for this particular area. But then as we discussed a little more, I realized that if you have an ethical lapse, that's one fault. If you then lie or cover up, now you've got two faults. And if we just even look at the world of politics, most of the time when politicians get in trouble for doing something wrong, they don't get in trouble for what they first did wrong. They get in trouble for the cover-up. I mean, all we have to do is go back to Watergate and Richard Nixon. I mean, and certainly tons of other examples, and that's human nature. So no one is perfect. People make errors, and I think that, first of all, you're probably in fairly good shape if the client didn't report you for something. So if you're then going to NCBTMB and saying, or your state board, that I feel this or that occurred, and it might have been interpreted a certain way, or whatever the case would be, then I think that you said, well, you can't ground grant for that. Well, maybe you'll get your wrists slapped, but I think it's going to be far better than if it comes out later that you did this, and then you've got your double whammy trouble.
People trust me. Sometimes I don't quite know why, but they trust me.
Yeah.
I got a phone call this last week from a massage therapist out of state, and he said, I just need to run something by you. I said, okay, what's going on? He hasn't had a massage for a while, and he wanted to get a good massage. And the place right next to his haircutting place is a massage place that he had heard was really good, but he was very flamboyant. He's a very macho man, and so he's like, well, I don't know, if he's a good massage therapist, I'll go. And he went to this massage place, and he got a massage, and he felt very violated that the guy had touched him inappropriately and pushed. And so he was calling me to see if his perceptions had legitimacy, or if I had heard of modalities where those types of activities were appropriate. And my response was, I wasn't in the moment. I wasn't there. I can't give you advice on your experience, but I can tell you, if you are experiencing something, if you're having discomfort about something, it's more important that you can connect with that and report it. Because whatever it is that actually happened, those facts of the case that you can document and send to their state licensing board, is going to make you a stronger person. Now, not being out for vengeance with it, because whenever I've had the opportunity, before I've had to, there's things that have gone on in cases where I've been on the table with other things. When you look at those cases, one of the key pieces is I reported the facts that I knew, and I'm trusting the licensing board that they can do what they need to do, and giving it to that higher power and saying that's all that I've done, what I've had to. And you get better because you're not holding your grudge, you're not holding all of that, you're passing that on.
Yeah, I think that certainly when there are wrongs that are committed, and certainly in our society today we know of wrongs that have been committed. This is 2018, if anyone watches this in 10 years, that people need to come forward, people need to speak up. Having said that, I do feel that people do need to examine themselves too. Like, it was excellent that this person you knew first looked to consult, not just with himself, but with someone else who might be experienced in the field to make a judgment. Because when I was a teacher at the school, we had a number of instances where some students felt that other students were not appropriate with them. And I was not there when something exactly happened, but I had been teaching both students for months or sometimes years. And I found that very often it was based on not true breach of ethics, but a social awkwardness, where the therapist, or the student as therapist in that case, didn't pick up on certain cues that helped create a circumstance where someone felt that a boundary was passed. And I mean, he was even just recently, I was teaching a workshop overseas in a particular place, and pairing off of people in the workshop was stilted, because normally I make people change a table with every new technique, so you constantly get new bodies to work on. And I was told by someone who was a teacher at that school, well, we can't have, and as I went through the weekend, I felt that everybody was innocent with great intentions, but I could see the social awkwardness in the person as the therapist, where I could see how it could be very misinterpreted. So I'm just bringing another piece in. Certainly, factually, something's done wrong, it's done wrong, period. Then, second, could there be a misinterpretation?
Social faux pas is a huge aspect, and we have diagnosed conditions that we talk about. They don't pick up certain understanding of social connection and communication. And it's the nonverbal communication that routinely, in my mind, is important one that gets lost in this process. We have people who don't understand that if you're rolling your eyes, that is saying something more than just
Or the inflection in your voice.
or the inflection or intention. I mean, my daughter will regularly say, "How come you're mad at me?" And I'll say, "I'm not mad." She says, "But you don't sound happy." And it's that I haven't had that upturn sound. I go,
Maybe
"Hey,
because of
Hannah,
other
how
things
are
in
you?
your day.
I'm tired."
And then, yeah.
Yeah, I'm anything else. And so I apologize for presenting myself that way and strive to improve so that there isn't a miscommunication. That same miscommunication can happen regularly with our clients on the daily, with our clients in treatment when we're doing an intake interview. If we seem off and aloof mentally, and we're just sitting there trying to really get into this note and not quite understand what is it about how we're engaging, how we're not presenting.
And that also leads into quality of care, because if you're not being mindful, my General Ram Dass, be here now. If you're not fully engaged there 100% or 99%, whatever needs to be for that person, that also probably means that you're not going to be a very successful therapist. I remember I was brought into some panel meeting years ago, and there were school owners, instructors, organizations like Massage Envy, etc. And it was a panel discussion about what are the major issues and problems in the field of massage. And I remember that one of the people, very experienced, said that the therapist does not listen to the client. And I was kind of taken aback because I love to talk, but when it's time for the client to speak, I do 2-hour first visits. I spend an hour and 15 minutes for history and exam. And that's my standard. And if it's more complicated, I can spend up to 2 hours. And so that's my choice. But I really believe in being thorough that way. But that person has to feel that you are absolutely listening to everything they say. And I also find with quality of care, and you could relate it back to ethics. If ethics means you're supposed to take care of someone, that sometimes you look for something to be the problem because that's what you like to be the problem. It's called confirmation bias. And they come in complaining of X. You find Y, you treat Y, and you're so proud of yourselves, and they walk out saying, he or she didn't listen to me. I came in for. So listening to the person involves a lot of aspects. And to hear that one of the major problems by this very experienced person who'd been in the field over 20 years at that point in time was the therapists were not listening to their clients, I thought that was a basic. But
Well, it is a basic truth, and it is something that's taught in massage school and forgotten by many therapists. But there's also the pompous aspect of, I've got this many years of experience, and so I should know how to. And that humility kind of comes. It should come in. I know my last massage that I had. I don't know why they decided I needed a deep tissue massage that really only focused on this part of my body. But during the massage, I said, you know what? You don't have to work on that. You can move on and lighten up a bit.
but they
They moved down to the lower back, moved right back up to the shoulders, and got the elbow back into that spot again. And I'm like, no. Then I move on. That is sore. That hurts. I don't need that anymore. And that was that piece where if your client doesn't know what they're doing and thinks that you are the professional, so you should know what you're doing, you can hurt them.
It's very interesting you say that, because I said I've never had an ethical boundary transgressed from you, but when I was thinking from the point of view of sexual transgressions, etc. I think that's what people always go with ethics, but I was getting a massage once in Korea, and she started to dig in a certain area. Now, I turned and I said, no, I don't want that depth there. And I said it in fewer words because English wasn't her first language. And she was frankly just pressing into my periosteum. And I turned back and she continued to do it. It's in my hamstring area. And I turned and said, please, now even indicating in case words weren't working. And I turned, and she did it more and even harder. And I turned and said, stop. And she said, but you're tight here. I clearly was making a boundary. And frankly, my thigh hurt for about 6 to 8 weeks because she bruised me. And it hurt with everyday walking activity for well over a month. And I was wondering if it was going to become, my age, it would probably become chronic problems, right? They don't just pass. And that actually was a very clear ethical boundary. 3 times I had to say stop, and I had to raise my voice and sound really not nice for her to stop.
Well, and if it has to get to that point for someone to tell you no, and truly, I know Nancy Dale is going to be teaching ethics at this conference, and one of the subjects that she's really wanting to put out there, I was talking to her yesterday in Las Vegas at the Women's Massage Festival, and she said she wants to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the ethical boundary of massage therapists aren't dealing with in deep tissue causing pain to their clients because they think they know better. There is an ethics portion to that. We don't connect with it, we don't talk about it very much, but it's there. And so as a massage therapist, not only listening to your client, confirming what's appropriate, what's inappropriate, and really following up and responding to their direction, either verbal or non.
I mean, in the end, they are the customer of care, right? I mean, you have to, in the end, do what's going to be appropriate for them. And actually, I think about it, I had another massage that within the last 6 months, and I normally don't tell people when I travel that I'm in the field of manual therapy, because then maybe they get nervous, so I'm working on another manual therapist, etc. But I do come in very clearly with the type of pressure I want, whatever words will work for that. And this particular person, I said I don't want. I was traveling, I was jet lagged. I did not want. I mean, I love deep tissue work. I love deep tissue work. But you have to feel tissue, tension, mechanical barriers. You must feel that. You go to that, and you can do a little more. If you do a little more, you get a little improvement. If you do a little more, you get a little more improvement. You even a little more, you get even more improvement. You do a little more, and you hurt them. Their nervous system panics. Their tissues, muscle spindles, whatever it is, and you have to respect those barriers. And she started to dig in quite deep, and I had said not to, and I said I really don't want deep pressure, and I got the same response. But you're tight here. But I was jet lag tired, and even if theoretically deeper work was appropriate, it wasn't appropriate for me that moment, that day. And I said it, and I had, in that case I only had to say it, kind of turn around once. So I wasn't thinking about it. Ethics always goes in another direction, but the care for someone has to be what they're willing to work with.
So I also, there's one other aspect on this same front that I really like pulling back together. If an expert came to you and said, effleurage doesn't help, it actually hurts people and you should never do it, and here's the proof to say effleurage is bad, would you change your protocol to, if it's demonstrated, proven to be effleurage is bad for you, would you change your protocol because the expert knew what they were talking about?
Well, I mean, okay, so there seems to be a lot of parts to that question. First, are they really an expert? Second, what is the proof? What really is proof? Because you can read one research study that makes one statement, and you can read another one that goes another one, and extrapolations can be made, interpretations can be made. I mean, I'm not sure where you're driving at past, Nathan, but I'm going to say this. What I always look at more, I love research. I love the foundation. I love all of that. It proves reliability. Are you really doing what you say you're doing? But I am a firm believer that the first thing I want to look at is fundamental principles of anatomy, physiology, of tissue. And to me, there are certain fundamental principles that underlie everything else. And I'm always going to go to them. One of the articles I once wrote is, how do we know what we know? And I said there are 4 ways you know what you know. One is the authority model. And that means an expert tells me this. And I love an expression Whitney Lowe once gave me, the sage on the stage, the person teaching the workshop. And It can also be the sage on the page as someone writing an article or a book. The problem is you'll very often get authorities that disagree with each other. So I don't love the authority model. The next one might be, well, research. But in manual therapy, there is a ton of research that is not done, and it's a very hard topic to do research on, because how does someone not know they had manual therapy done? So a lot of research very often compares to other therapies that have known value of treatment, like acupuncture, etc.
Well,
So,
I think we can be the placebo, and that really hurts the whole process as well.
and placebo is very big, but placebo also has value.
Correct.
So that's a questionable arbiter by which you decide. The third one is, well, I'll try it on my client on Monday morning and see how they do. But if you're experimenting with them, not everyone pays you good money wants to be the guinea pig for you. So I always said, look, all of these have some value. To me, the fourth one is, the most important one is, does it fit with principles that we clearly have a good sense of physical mechanics, neural mechanics, tissue responses, etc. So I will go to that before I will respect any supposed sage on the stage or page. And I know I can be considered that, since I have many textbooks, 70 some odd articles, and I teach workshops.
So
I'll put
you
one
would
more thing.
you would-
I say when I get to a workshop, I say to the participants right at the beginning, you are more than welcome to disagree with anything I say, but you have to give me a reason why you disagree.
Yeah. So your mental process that happened right there is the same process that a massage therapist has when a client comes in and says, I want a light massage, or I'm okay with deep tissue, but I don't want it to be too deep. And so the massage therapist comes in and they go in and they find something, they go, oh, I'm going to dig that out. They're relying on their experience. They're relying on the training, the sage on the stage saying, this is, you have this is how you respond. Instead of going to
Respect for the client.
because the true expert in that human body's condition is the one who told you what they expect. They're their own expert in how to live in their body. And when they say, this is my expectation, that as an expert in living in this body, this is what I'm looking for, that's going to give me the best results. And we may say, well, you may know that's
But I've
good,
read all
but
these
I've read all
amazing
these
things, I've taken all these workshops, and I know what
I
you
know
need
your body
is.
more than you do. That's a dangerous spot to be.
It's very risky.
Using the studies, going back and saying, here's the basic principles, and talking to them, because you know what, the therapeutic relationship has both of you there, has both of you engaged. It should engage both your physical bodies and your mental bodies. Being able to really engage the mind of a client, and going in and pressing on an area and saying, how's that pressure? And checking in on pressure. Checking in on pressure is something that I see not nearly enough of. And people are like, well, I don't want to wake them up. They're probably not asleep if you're pushing that hard.
You know, I'll first say that I think it's extremely important to set the stage early on, to make it very clear. I always say, you're never complaining here, you're reporting. That's the first thing. Tell me anything and everything that you feel, response, let me decide if it's important clinically. Don't think it's not important. And please, always feel free to interrupt or step in and say anything. I'm not as big a fan of how's the pressure. I prefer, do you want more pressure or do you want less pressure? Because how's the pressure puts someone in perhaps the uncomfortable position of having to criticize you. Whereas if you say, do you want more pressure or do you want less pressure, you have invited the change. And in fact, they have to go out of their way to say, oh, no, the pressure is fine the way it is now. Or it's easier to just say, more, please, less, please. So I prefer that way of asking the question.
So,
and how you phrase a question determines the answer you get very
wording
often.
to change instead of wording to stagnancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that there's some strength to that, is being able to say, okay, here's B. Do you want more or less? And that means that I understand that this pressure is okay. This pressure is all right. This pressure is good. This pressure, but it may be quote good, and they may just be saying that's fine. And what they mean is that's fine. That you're doing all right. But if you're doing a little more, I think you'll be better. Or less them that next direction so that you can give them the best result?
Well, I mean,
because it changes every part of the body.
feedback is what's going to help us. Now, I will say that I truly believe that if you are feeling tissue tension barriers, that you really can't truly harm someone, because you should be feeling the response of their tissue. And I don't mean to make this sound crass, but we had an instructor who, back in chiropractic school 35 years ago, who, Dr. Stonebrink, since we're saying names, if we could say Grant and Emmett's name, who could phrase things in a way you'd remember them. And he once, so this will sound arrogant, I don't want it to sound arrogant, but he would say, don't ask the patient how they feel. He would say, tell them how they feel. And I disagree with that phraseology, because you can't, it's subjective. But his point was that you should not be chasing every little thing that they're feeling. You should be going beyond. You incorporate all of that, but then you determine your assessment. But in the end, let's even say that the client is wrong about what they should have done. It doesn't matter. If you breach their trust, right, then they're never going to trust you for anything. I had a patient who came in to see me once, and she told me very straightforward, right in the very beginning, she did not want any joint mobilization. And she was coming in for a couple of neck and tennis elbow, and she came in very regularly for a number of months, twice a week. She had a very chronic condition. And I respected her wishes fully. I never did any joint mobilization, even though I felt it would help her neck immeasurably. She was a therapist with patients of her own. And one day we had a conversation, and she was saying, well, you know, people should be open to experiencing new things. Well, I mean, how do I not jump in on that? So I said, well, since you bring that up, you've never wanted me to do joint mobilization. How about if you let me try it gently? So she was kind of painted into a corner based on her.
She painted herself in a corner.
Yes, she really did. So she said, fine. And I did the mobilization. And when we were done, I said, well, how was it? And she said, the joint mobilization was 3, the massage is 7. In other words, all this time she was afraid of it. And I respected that, but when I felt there was a chance maybe to educate based on what I believe with our education that we have, then I did it with her full verbal consent. And I will make a side point. Joint mobilization, even regular stretching, is grade 3 joint mobilization. Grade 4 slow oscillation is legal and ethical for massage therapists in most every state. I once had the AMTA lawyer at that time tell me 40 of the 50 states it was legal, and that was 5-10 years ago, and I've never gotten a list of which exact state. But and then there's grade 5, which is fast thrust, and I'm also a chiropractic physician, so I can do the grade 5. It's never ethical or legal for a massage therapist to do fast thrust grade 5.
It's out of scope.
It's out of scope, right? Absolutely. I mean, if a joint happens to release when you're doing a slow arm, well, sometimes I turn my neck and the joint release. That's fine, but there should never be that fast thrust amplitude thrust. So I think we must respect our clients, and if we really feel that we know that something's good for them that they don't want, we have to educate them, and only when they consent do we then move forward. Now, well, I know this is right for you, so I'm going to do it anyway.
So all of this comes right back around to the purpose of the topic. And when it comes down to us doing something wrong, it's always better for us to report it. If there's a breach of ethics or standard of practice that we've done, reporting that to NCB and saying, hey, you may just want to have this on record. This is what happened. This is the situation. I just wanted to let you know.
Might even be to your advantage in that maybe you were afraid to be misinterpreted.
Yeah.
And you could tell maybe they responded a certain way, I don't know, I'm guessing. And therefore, by putting this out there before, if something did come in, all the better that you stated what you felt on your side.
And if that client doesn't report anything, doesn't have a complaint, perfect. You've got documentation and you've got proof that you know what happened, you know how you're going to improve, you're going to do these actions to improve. That's self-assessment, that's self-strength and self-improvement. As I've said several times, failure is just the next opportunity to succeed.
That's great.
And so you screw up, you learn from it, you move on to that next step. So reporting yourself. And And then there's that second side of reporting first-hand knowledge of other certificates. If you know that someone is not following, once again, has to go to first-hand knowledge and proof. Not
State facts.
that someone says something, said someone or someone else to it. I take that one other step, and if a client comes to me and says, hey Nathan, I saw this person last time, they did this, this, and this. Here's the information for the state licensing board, here's the information.
If someone has an ethical breach and they're going to hurt you physically, emotionally, psychologically, sexually, psychically, whatever it would be, then they're very likely going to hurt someone else.
Yep.
And staying quiet kind of makes you culpable for the next person that gets hurt.
It absolutely can. And
Yeah, my kind of was being nice. It does make you culpable.
You can be in trouble for aiding and abetting.
And there will be anonymity in this kind of a setting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but remember that your clients deserve the right to know where to report. Because if truly most massage clients don't know how to connect with the state licensing. Most massage clients don't know what the national certification board is. Most massage clients don't go through and figure out, if I was going to report, how would I report this? And as a licensed massage therapist, it's in your license to make sure that your clients are safe from massage therapists who are doing it wrong. So it's our responsibility to make sure that appropriate reporting is being done and giving people the opportunity to do it. Joe, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
And it's good to see you face to face instead
It's
of
nice
on a
versus,
screen, right?
Yeah,
So,
very good.
thank you. Next time we will be getting together. We'll see you next time.
The hour has flown by. We hope you've enjoyed this discussion with Ethics Outside the Box. As you've seen, Nathan uses many second-hand stories of ethical situations. If you'd like to share your story or you have any questions, feel free to contact him and Nathan at educatedtouch.com. If you have just watched this video and would like continuing education for home study, you can go to shop.educatedtouch.com under the home study options with the date or episode number to receive your exam. If you would please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, we will keep you up to date on new videos. If you'd like to attend one of our live courses, you can find upcoming scheduled events at www.educatedtouch.com. Thank you for joining us today.